Have you been kind all your life, only to become an easy target? Kindness is a beautiful gift, but when given without limits, it can quietly wear us down. Many of us spent decades being agreeable, generous, and endlessly patient. But with age comes wisdom. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your heart. Living with a little more distance after 70 isn't cold, it's clarity. You begin to see that constant availability invites exhaustion, not respect. That being overly emotional can blur your peace. That saying yes too often leaves little left for yourself. This shift isn't about shutting down. It's about choosing where your energy flows. You can still be kind, just more wisely. You can still give, but without draining. You learn to walk away from what disturbs your calm, even if you once tolerated it for years. In the quiet of later life, peace becomes sacred. And protecting it? That's not selfish. That's strength. So if you find yourself becoming more detached, trust that it's not the end of your warmth. It's the beginning of finally including yourself in your own kindness. Number 1. Guarding your time, a reflection of self-worth. There's a quiet truth we come to know with age, especially after 70. Time is no longer something we simply pass. It becomes something we honor. Every hour feels more meaningful. Every day more fleeting. And every moment has the potential to either uplift your spirit or quietly drain it. That's why one of the most powerful choices you can make at this stage of life is to stop giving your time away so freely. Guarding your time isn't about being unkind. It's not about becoming distant. It's about finally understanding that your time is sacred. And not everyone, and not everything, deserves a piece of it. Living coldly, in this sense, doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means becoming deeply intentional. It means learning the difference between busy and fulfilled. It means choosing to spend your hours in ways that reflect who you truly are. Think back. How many times have you said yes, only to feel regret creep in the moment you showed up? Sitting through conversations that bored you. Running errands that were never yours to begin with. Attending gatherings that left you feeling more disconnected than if you'd stayed home. It's easy to believe that saying yes to everything makes you a good person. But the truth? Saying yes to everything can rob you of the life you truly want. Real wisdom lies in discernment. In knowing that how you spend your time reveals what you believe about yourself. Take Helen, for example. She's 78 now and used to accept every invitation. Her calendar was full. Church meetings, family dinners, community clubs. Always out. Always involved. But she noticed something. When the days ended, she didn't feel energized. She felt empty. So she did something radical. She sat down and asked herself a single question. What here actually brings me joy? The answer surprised her. Most of it didn't. So she started making changes. She said no without apology. She began curating her time like a precious collection, selecting only what nourished her soul. Today, Helen's calendar is lighter, but her heart? So much fuller. That's the gift of guarded time. Because your schedule should reflect your values. It should be filled with moments that restore you, not deplete you. If something doesn't serve your peace, your health, your joy, you are allowed to step back. You don't need to explain. You don't need to seek approval. You also begin to see your relationships more clearly. The people who only reach out when they need something become easier to spot. The ones who never ask how you are but expect you to always be available. Those connections lose their hold. And in that clarity, you begin to reclaim your worth. There is deep peace in a quiet day with no obligations. There is healing in choosing how you spend your morning, instead of handing it over to someone else's agenda. Because every time you say, "I'm not available for that," what you're really saying is, "I matter." You're saying, "My hours are not disposable." You're saying, "This part of my life belongs to me." And that is where dignity begins to flourish. Number 2. Saying no without guilt, a sacred act of self-respect. By the time we reach our 70s, something within us softens, and something else strengthens. We begin to see clearly, our time is precious, our energy finite. And one of the most powerful forms of self-respect is the ability to say no, firmly, kindly, and without guilt. For decades, many of us were raised to be agreeable, to accommodate, to be the one others could count on even at our own expense. We said yes when we were tired. We said yes when we meant no. And over time, those yes piled up into exhaustion, into quiet resentment. But now we're not here to be everything for everyone. We're here to live what remains of our lives with peace, clarity, and intention. That's not selfish. That's survival. Every time you say yes to something you don't want to do, you are, in essence, saying no to something your heart might truly need, like rest, solitude, or a simple afternoon without pressure. Your days are yours now. You get to choose how they're spent. You don't owe your presence to every invitation. You don't owe your attention to every request. And you certainly don't owe your energy to those who've taken it for granted. Let's take Sandra as an example. At 76, she had spent much of her life as the dependable one. Rides to the airport, holiday meals, last-minute babysitting. If someone needed something, Sandra showed up, even if it meant canceling her own plans. But last year something shifted. She realized that in giving so much to others, she had quietly abandoned herself. Now Sandra says no. Softly, clearly, and without explanation. And the beauty? Life didn't collapse. Those who truly valued her adapted. And at last she found room to breathe. You don't need an excuse to say no. You don't have to over-explain. Those who love and respect you won't demand one. And those who do, they've simply grown used to your absence of boundaries. There's strength in a gentle no. It's not a rejection, it's a protection. A way of creating space in your life for the things that matter most. Your health, your joy, your quiet mornings, your unhurried evenings. When you stop feeling guilty for protecting your own well-being, something powerful returns to you, your energy, your spark, yourself. Because living with boundaries is not about being cold-hearted. It's about caring wisely. And finally, including yourself in that care. So if this speaks to where you are in life or where you're heading, I invite you to pause and reflect. What would saying no without guilt make space for in your life? If you're still here, still listening, comment number 2 below to let me know you're walking this journey too. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is a good time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a message made just for you. Your presence here matters. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs, uplifts, and gently reminds you you're allowed to put yourself first. Let's keep going, together. Number 3. Emotional detachment, a gift to your peace. There comes a time in life, often after 70, when peace is no longer just a luxury. It becomes essential. The kind of peace that isn't loud or dramatic but quiet, steady, and deeply protective of your inner world. And one of the greatest ways to nurture that peace is learning to let go of emotional entanglements that once seemed so important. Emotional detachment is not about shutting down your heart. It's about becoming more selective with where your heart goes. There's a quiet strength in realizing that not every argument deserves your energy. Not every family tension requires your intervention. And not every sharp word is worth your response. With age comes the wisdom to know that your emotional reserves are sacred, and they're not meant to be spent on people who only take, never give. Too often we confuse love with obligation. We mistake being present with being responsible for everyone's feelings. But authentic love doesn't require that you lose sleep over someone else's turmoil. True love respects your space. It doesn't demand that you fix what was never yours to mend. When you begin to detach emotionally, what you're really doing is defining a boundary, a soft but firm line between what touches your soul and what doesn't need to anymore. That line is your quiet salvation. You can still care deeply. But you don't have to absorb someone else's pain to prove it. You can listen with compassion without feeling responsible to solve. You can sit beside someone without carrying their chaos home in your heart. Let me tell you about someone like that. Robert, an 81-year-old with a heart as big as his family tree. For decades he was the one everyone leaned on. Missed birthdays, family fallouts, late-night tears, he was always the first call. Always the one trying to patch it all up. But over time Robert began to feel the weight of it all. His mornings felt heavier. His evenings were filled with other people's stress. He realized something deeply personal. The clock of life was ticking louder, and too many of his precious hours were spent on problems that didn't belong to him. So he changed. Now he listens but no longer rushes in. He shows up, but no longer overextends. He loves, but from a place that keeps him whole. And in that shift, Robert found something he didn't know he was missing: his own peace. That kind of peace isn't flashy. It's not always understood. In fact, some people might call you cold. But what they really mean is that you're no longer convenient. You're no longer a sponge for their emotions. You're not the default fixer. And in truth, that's not coldness, it's clarity. It's protection. It's freedom. Because when you stop carrying emotional burdens that were never yours, something beautiful happens. Your own path becomes lighter. Your mornings open with ease. Your nights settle without worry. The phone can ring without dread. And the silence between interactions feels like a friend, not a threat. This kind of peace, the unshaken, steady kind, isn't just worth protecting. It's worth building your whole life around. Number 4. Selective empathy, a quiet guardian of your mental health. There's a subtle, profound shift that begins to take place after the age of 70. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But one day you find yourself realizing, while empathy is a beautiful gift, giving it too often, too freely, and without boundaries can begin to unravel your own well-being. Empathy, when unchecked, can become a silent thief. Selective empathy is not the absence of compassion. It's the wisdom to direct your compassion where it truly belongs. It's recognizing that not everyone is meant to carry a piece of your heart. Not every sorrow needs your attention. And not every storm is yours to stand in. Because when you feel deeply for everyone without pause or filter, you slowly become a vessel for emotions that were never yours to begin with: grief, fear, confusion, disappointment. Their weight settles quietly in your body and spirit, and before long, you may start waking up more tired, more anxious, more heavy-hearted, without even knowing why. This is where living a little colder, or rather more consciously, becomes a quiet act of self-preservation. Let me introduce you to Gerald. At 83, he is known for his gentleness and generosity. For years, Gerald made space in his heart for everyone's troubles. Friends who were struggling, neighbors at odds, family members going through crisis. He held it all. Not just with his words, but in his body. He carried it in his sleep, in his blood pressure, in the quiet fading of his joy. Until one day his doctor said something simple yet profound: "You can care, Gerald, but you don't have to collapse." And that sentence changed his life. Gerald began to give himself permission to care, just enough to stay kind, but not so much that he disappeared in other people's stories. He learned that empathy is not a duty. It's a gift. And gifts, by nature, are chosen, not demanded. Selective empathy means listening with love, but not absorbing pain like a sponge. It means being present without becoming consumed. It means letting people handle their own struggles while you protect the quiet center of your own life. Some people don't come to you for connection. They come because they know you'll carry what they no longer want to hold. And at this stage of life, you have every right to say, no more. When you start filtering who receives your empathy, who has truly earned your emotional investment, life begins to feel different. Your mind feels less crowded. Your spirit lifts. You rediscover time and energy for the things that truly matter: your health, your hobbies, your creativity, your peace. You stop apologizing for your boundaries and start living by them. And in that space, mental clarity returns. Emotional resilience returns. Joy returns. There's a quiet kind of grace in this form of detachment. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming clear. You're not shutting people out, you're sheltering your spirit. You are finally giving yourself the same care and concern you've so freely given to others. And in doing so, your mental health, so often placed last, begins to thrive again. If this message resonates with you, let me know by commenting number 4 below. I'd love to hear how you're setting these gentle boundaries in your life. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider joining us by clicking subscribe and turning on notifications. We're building a space here for reflection, healing, and quiet wisdom, and your presence truly matters. Let's continue together. Number 5. Choosing solitude over noise, a return to yourself. There's something beautifully sacred that happens when you stop fearing solitude and start embracing it. In your earlier years, being alone might have felt like loneliness, like something to fix, fill, or escape. But after 70, solitude begins to shift. It transforms. It no longer feels like absence. It feels like presence, not of others but of yourself. In a world that constantly pulls your attention outward, choosing quiet becomes a radical act of self-love. You begin to realize that not every silence needs to be filled with conversation. Not every afternoon needs a plan. Not every weekend needs visitors, phone calls, or noise. Sometimes the most meaningful moments are the ones where you simply sit, with a cup of tea, a memory, or a thought that brings peace instead of pressure. Solitude isn't emptiness. It's a homecoming. And yet, many still struggle with it, because we've been conditioned to believe that being alone means being forgotten. That slowing down means we're falling behind. But who are we racing? At this stage in life, the only thing worth chasing is peace. Let me tell you about Marianne. At 79, she found herself alone more often than not. Her children had their lives, her partner had passed, and her social circle had grown quieter. At first, it frightened her. The silence felt heavy. The stillness unfamiliar. But slowly, she began to see that solitude was offering her something no conversation ever had: space to hear her own voice again. The voice that had been drowned out by decades of busyness and caregiving and compromise. Now, Marianne lights a candle each morning and sits in stillness. Not because she has nothing to do, but because she finally understands that being with herself is enough. You don't need to fill every gap in your day. You don't need to keep explaining why you're unavailable. You don't need to apologize for enjoying your own company. Because solitude is not what steals your joy. Noise does. And when you choose solitude, intentionally, lovingly, you begin to notice things. How your breath softens. How your thoughts quiet down. How beauty finds you in the smallest details. A bird outside your window, the warmth of the sun on your arm, the way your soul exhales when no one needs anything from you. That is the gift. So if the world calls you cold for spending more time alone, let them. You know the truth. You're not avoiding people. You're rediscovering yourself. You're letting your spirit breathe. You're making space for the parts of you that were silenced long ago. And in that space, something precious awakens. Number 6. Detaching from outcomes. The quiet path to true peace. There's a rare kind of power that settles into the soul after 70. It's not loud. It doesn't seek to impress. It shows up in the stillness, when you stop trying to control everything and instead, you simply allow life to be. Letting go of outcomes doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you've lived long enough to understand that no amount of worry can force things to go your way. And no amount of overthinking can guarantee a perfect ending. Living coldly, in this sense, isn't about detachment from love. It's about detachment from the illusion of control. It's emotional clarity. It's finally seeing that your peace no longer hinges on how others behave, how they respond, or whether they approve of your choices. And that, in itself, is a quiet kind of mastery. When we're younger, we exhaust ourselves trying to hold it all together: relationships, outcomes, appearances. We try to fix people who don't want to change. We obsess over our words, our timing, our decisions. We lie awake playing out conversations that never happened and regrets that won't change. But eventually wisdom whispers, "It's not yours to hold." Let me tell you about Eleanor. She's 84 now, and for much of her life, she carried the emotional weight of her family. Her children's choices kept her up at night. Their financial stress, their broken relationships, their missteps, they lived in her mind as if they were her own. Until one day she realized, my worry doesn't help them, but it is hurting me. So, Eleanor made a quiet decision. She would love her children without condition. She would offer guidance when asked, but release the need to manage their lives. And something remarkable happened. Her body softened. Her mind became quieter. She began to smile again, not because life was perfect, but because she stopped trying to make it be. That is the gift of emotional detachment. You reclaim your energy. You stop chasing validation. You let conversations end unresolved. You allow people to misunderstand you without scrambling to fix their perception. You no longer spiral just because someone else is spinning. You stay grounded. You stay you. Because your emotional thermostat is no longer set by someone else's behavior. Whether they're kind or not, grateful or not, Present or not, you remain steady. You remain free. This is what it means to live with emotional independence. To live coldly, not with bitterness, but with strength. Not in surrendering your values, but in surrendering your grip on outcomes. You still show up. You still care. But you release the need for things to unfold a certain way. And that release, while difficult, becomes your gateway to peace. Because peace doesn't come from control. Peace comes from trust. Trust that you've done your part. Trust that others will do theirs, or won't. And either way you will be okay. If this final insight speaks to your heart, let me know by commenting number 6 below. It's beautiful to know we're walking this path together. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and turn on the bell. This space is here to support your journey, with gentleness, with honesty, and with deep respect for everything you've lived through. You've earned your peace. Now, protect it. Let's move forward, lightly, bravely, and with love. Number 7. Saying no, a powerful guard for your personal boundaries. There is a strength that emerges with age, not always in the body but undeniably in the spirit. And one of the clearest signs of that inner strength is the ability to say no, gently, firmly, and without guilt. After 70, your personal boundaries become more than preferences or polite requests. They become shields, quiet, powerful shields that guard your peace, your dignity, and your freedom to live life on your own terms. Living more coldly in this season of life isn't about being distant or unkind. It's about honoring yourself finally and fully. It's about understanding that protecting your space is not rude. It's necessary. Too many people confuse kindness with availability. If you've always been dependable, the one people knew they could call at any time, then you may know what it feels like to watch your own needs quietly disappear in the service of everyone else's. You say yes when your heart says no. You agree to help when your body whispers that it needs rest. You smile through behavior that crosses the line just to keep the peace. But let's be clear, peace that comes at the cost of your own well-being isn't peace at all. It's quiet surrender. Louis knows this story well. He's 81 now, and for most of his life he was the rock, the calm presence, the helper, always saying yes. But eventually he began to notice something unsettling. His generosity had stopped being appreciated. It had become expected. When he declined an invitation, people were surprised. When he voiced a concern, it was dismissed. So one day, Louis decided to make a change. He stopped answering calls that only came with demands. He started saying no, even if it disappointed someone. And what he felt wasn't anger. It wasn't guilt. It was freedom. Because boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks. You decide who comes in and how far they're allowed to go. Saying no doesn't mean you're cold-hearted. It means you're wise enough to protect what you've built over a lifetime, your energy, your values, your peace. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. You start to see who respects your boundaries, and who was simply using your kindness. And yes, when you say no with confidence, some people may disappear. But don't mistake that as a loss. It's clarity. It's a cleansing. It's a blessing. Because you begin to recognize something vital. Your boundaries are not just fences. They are reflections of self-respect. You're not here to carry guilt like a weight. You're not here to serve every request or solve every conflict. You're here to live, to enjoy the days you've earned. And that means drawing your lines and standing by them. There is courage in this kind of coldness. Not the kind that isolates, but the kind that gently calls you back to yourself. The kind that says, I am not here to be everything to everyone anymore. I am here to be true to me. At this stage of life, protecting your personal boundaries isn't an act of rebellion. It's an act of survival. And every time you say no with clarity and care, you reclaim something sacred. Your voice, your time, your power. Final thoughts. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you, not just for watching but for honoring yourself with this time of reflection. Growing older isn't always easy. It comes with its losses, its aches, and its quiet changes. But it also comes with wisdom, with clarity, with the chance to finally live in a way that honors your energy, your heart, and your truth. Choosing to live coldly, as some might call it, isn't about hardening your spirit. It's about softening your expectations, releasing your burdens, and returning to yourself. It's about protecting what's left of your peace, not because you're bitter but because you've earned the right to be whole. Remember this: you are not selfish for saying no. You are not cold for needing space. You are not unkind for choosing rest over responsibility. You are simply wiser now. And wisdom at this stage in life is one of the greatest freedoms there is. So wherever you are on your journey, I hope you walk it with grace, with gentleness, and with the quiet courage to protect your joy. If something in today's message touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below and let me know, what insight are you taking with you today? If you haven't already, please subscribe and tap the notification bell. We're building a space here where older souls can feel seen, supported, and inspired to live with more intention. And if this video brought you peace, consider sharing it with someone who might need it too. Sometimes one gentle message is all it takes to shift a day or a life. Until next time, take care of your heart and let your quiet wisdom lead the way.